Good morning, evening, and afternoon from wherever you're joining us in the world today, and welcome to the September edition of SpeakUp. SpeakUp is a unique collaboration between KeyNote and SpunkGo, through which KeyNote directory members and training alumni will share their experiences and expertise on various topics each month to inspire and ignite meaningful conversations on subjects that matter and bring communities together through SpunkGo. KeyNote Women Speakers is the world's leading directory of female public speakers. Founded in Singapore in 2017, KeyNote is a nonprofit organization run entirely by volunteers. KeyNote's mission is to directly bring diversity to speaking stages around the world. They offer a much acclaimed public speaking training program for women who want to increase their confidence in speaking up either at home or at work. KeyNote was awarded the Outstanding Achievement for Gender Inclusion at the AmCham Woman Hero Awards 2021 for their groundbreaking work on working the needle on diversity on stages. SpunkGo is an all-girls global student organization with over 20 chapters and 30 ambassadors and 5,000 members. SpunkGo holds monthly LifeSkill webinars on various topics like mental health and communication for young women in developing chapters across the world by hosting successful women entrepreneurs and professionals. In this episode of SpeakUp, I'm glad to host keynote woman Senela Jayasuriya. Senela Jayasuriya is an award-winning leadership, business, and transformation coach and a global keynote speaker. She is the founder and CEO of Women Empowered Global, a global platform that empowers women through education, career advancement, and entrepreneurial programs. She is also the founder of 1 Million Women in Power, as well as managing director of Diverse, an innovative consulting company specializing in innovation, strength assessments, and innovative coaching. Senela was awarded Exceptional Woman of Excellence by the Women Economic Forum and recipient of the Women Icon Asia Award. She is also ambassador to the United States Presidential Service Center, focusing on DEI training and advocacy programs, and has been recognized among the top 150 global women leaders by Global Council for Promotion of International Trade. Through her lived experiences, Senela will share a light on the real power that we hold as youth and how we can shape a resilient and sustainable future for everyone. And with that, welcome to SpeakUp, Senela.
Thank you so much, Netra. What a joy it is in my heart to share this moment with you, this interaction, throughout this webinar. Thank you for that. So hi, everybody connecting from around the world. I love that I'm speaking to a group of young women, like Netra said. Totally echo that. You are powerful. And I'm excited that we're going to look at a topic very close to my heart, because it's all about transformation, not just within, but looking at how you can be someone that can be someone for others. It's not just about yourself. How can you be a legacy? How can you leave the world in a better place? So my conversation with you today is titled Agents of Change. So I'm passionate about this topic. You're probably thinking, well, Senela, why are you talking about agents of change? What drives you to talk about that? What is your story, Senela? How do you relate to this? How can I be an agent of change, Senela? You're probably wondering, right? So today, I want to get a little personal with you. I wonder if I can take you through my story, my journey. I mean, you heard my bio, you heard my profile. Some of you probably Googled me. I'm all over social media. I'm all over the internet worldwide. So I really do want to take you back to the genesis of how it started. And there are going to be some key points and life mantras and life philosophy that I really hope to inspire and leave you with today. So looking at today, let me quickly open. I have a little bit of a slide deck for you. It's all about agents of change. Now, interesting, when I say this statement, agents of change, I wonder, how does this make you feel, this topic? How does it get you to think? How do you relate to this idea of being an agent of change? What does it mean to you? What is it talking about? What is the significance of this for your life, for your brothers and sisters, for your neighbors' children, and for the society and the global village at large? Agents of change. I want to open today with a very powerful quote that I came across. And it goes like this. It's by Alan Watts. There is a price to be paid for every increase in consciousness. We cannot be more sensitive to pleasure without being more sensitive to pain. I want you to think about that. We cannot be more sensitive to pleasure without being more sensitive to pain. Why am I talking about pain? Why am I talking about this quote? And why am I relating this to being an agent, a true agent of change? Why am I relating this to your self-discovery on being a true driving force for change? To be that true driving force to create resiliency in the world, to create a sustainable future. What do you want to be remembered for? What do you want to stand for? And what do you want to get behind? What do you want to stand behind? What are the choices you want to make today that are going to be a legacy footprint for you and others around you tomorrow, the next day, the day after that? So it's interesting because people come and ask me, Senela, you're so driven. You're doing all these things. You wear so many different global hats. Why? How come? How do you do it? You know what I tell them? And you probably heard this. You know, I heard this famous quote. It says, if not me, then who? If not now, then when? And that's something I totally resonate with. And I share that. I tell them openly if they ask me this. I am committed to be the change I want to see. I am tired of saying it's not my responsibility. Are you kidding me? Being an agent of change, I can barely look after myself. How can I let alone think about people around me? Senela, let me focus on my studies, please. Let me focus on scoring well, getting my job. No, that's not what we're about. I'm speaking to a group of young women with enormous power, potential, with enormous influence to bring the impact and drive we want to see in our world tomorrow. The future generation. That's who I'm talking about. That's who I'm speaking to today. And I'm curious, when you think about being that agent of change, are you ready to be committed and say, you know what? It's going to take dedication. It's not about me. But being that agent of positive change starts with me saying yes to change. Starts with me saying, I'm willing. The minute you start thinking, oh, you know what? Senela, I'm quite frankly very comfortable with being comfortable. That's not going to work. You cannot be an agent of change if you are in love with the idea of where things are right now. You're satisfied. You're content. That is not going to cut it. Being an agent of change is looking at a vision that goes beyond you. It's about being so dedicated for something. Sometimes it's, you tend to be an agent of change, want to stand for a particular thing, because end of the day, if you try to do everything with your little hands and your big heart, it's not going to be as effective. So you've got to figure out, what is it that I find myself thinking about the most? What is it that I want to really get behind? What is that one thing, that one cause that I want to say that, yes, I am going to advocate. Yes, I'm an ambassador for this. I want to be, Senela, I'm ready to be an agent of change. So coming back to Alan Watts' quote, there's a price to be paid for every increase in consciousness. We cannot be more sensitive to pleasure without being more sensitive to pain. There is power in pain. I may not have met you before today. I may not know your problems and your specific pain, but I can tell you and I can promise you that as a woman who was also once a young little girl, just like you, that fierce young woman with great potential, I can relate to your struggle. I can say that you're not alone. I can say that I too have been through my fair share of self-doubt, of heartache, brokenness, that void we feel sometimes. You know, we come to crossroads in our life and we're like, oh, what do we do? Which direction do we pick? If only we had more clarity in what we want. Why does life feel so complicated sometimes? I've had my fair share of doubt. I've had all of that. So I can relate to this, that narrative, that inner voice that says, you know, yes, I know I have potential. There's so much social pressure for me to do something, but am I good enough? Am I worth it? Does my life have meaning? Does my life have purpose? How can I change for the better so I can impact those around me? What is my legacy? Can I be an agent for change? My answer to you, young ladies, is yes, yes, a million times yes. And today, my ask from you is to keep your mind alert, your heart open, and hold my hand as I take you through this journey over the next 35 minutes or so. And I hope my time with you today will give you an inner awakening, that sense of self-discovery and that passion, that consciousness to realize and recognize that your strengths come from struggle. Your struggle can turn into your biggest strengths. And opportunities, young friends, arise a lot of the times from problems. You get into problem solving, you identify a problem out there, you want to do something about it, triggered from what? From problems itself. So opportunities get birthed out of problems. All right, so it's about having that power of perspective. So I want to take you through on how I started. Like I said, I want to get a little personal with you, you know, because like I said, I haven't met you before this, but I can certainly relate to you and you're not alone. I want you to know that you're not alone. So let's go into a little bit about how my journey began. What is my story all about? So each of us are made up of three parts. Essentially, we have the nature, that's our genetics, you know, what we've inherited, the chromosomes from our parents, you know, a little bit of their yin and yang. So it's our nature, you know, the genetic formation, how that happens. Some character attributes gets passed down through genetics, right? Gets inherited. So it's your nature. Another one, your nurture. What are those things, those values, those personality traits, those ideas that you have consciously and subconsciously, that society has consciously and unconsciously reinforced and imprinted upon you? What have you nurtured inside of yourself? So you have nature, you have the nurture part of you. And finally, you have the experience. The experience, your exposure to life, your exposure to subjects, your exposure to people, your exposure to education and literacy, your exposure to meetings, to connections, your exposure. So you have the nature, you have the nurture, you have the experience, right? So these are the three by and large components that really create you. So let's have a look a little bit. As I share with you my story, you will see a little bit of how these things have formed for me. And the choices I made along the way. So let's go into a little bit about my upbringing. So I'm the third of 4 children. I have 1 sister and I have 2 brothers. My parents, I'm going to be very open with you. My mom and dad, they married at a rather young age, and against their parents' wishes. My mom fell in love with my dad. They were together for 7 years before they decided, you know what, I love you too much. Let's get married. Let's start a family. Let's do life. That was the story of my parents, like a typical Romeo and Juliet scenario. I'm not even kidding. All right. So that was mom and dad. And my mom was from an extremely wealthy family, whereas my dad lost his dad when he was just 10 years old. So he was raised by his widowed mother, who was living off a very tiny pension. So hardly any income to get by. So my mom and dad, polar opposite lifestyles, right? Fell in love. And what happened? My mom left her family to get married with my dad. And what happened then? You know how the story goes. This is not something new to South Asia and certain other parts of the world. The family cut off my mom from her supply. Cut her off, said, bye-bye. You made a decision against my wishes. Bye. We cut you off. So you can imagine, here I was, a child of a young couple trying to raise 4 children alone, starting life from ground zero and rock bottom. So childhood for me was quite hard. Childhood for me was pretty much survival mode. I remember both parents had to work constantly. I hardly saw them growing up. So money was also a very tense subject in my household during my early childhood days. I remember, I'm going to share this with you. I haven't shared this on a panel or anywhere else in my speaking. So the first time I'm going to share this with you. I remember in my early childhood, life was so, it was so intense, that situation. I remember a time where, mom said, split the toothpaste in half. Split the tube in half when it's almost done. Don't throw it out. Learn to optimize what you have. Don't waste. And she got us to squeeze out the last bit of remaining toothpaste. That was my early childhood, believe it or not. And then subsequently, from the ages of 9 upwards, things started transforming. My mom, she got pregnant, and at the same time, she decided to enter law college, and she passed with like flying colors, and she ended up having a very successful top legal career. And she ended up retiring as the acting chairman of a large state organization in the country. Very successful. Then my father, from humble beginnings, he ended up, he went on to becoming a celebrated professional. He was a regional head in a multinational Fortune 500, getting posted around the world, leading business. And then subsequently, he started his own business venture. True success story for this young couple. So you're probably wondering, wow, were they agents of change? Senela, what was their magic to their method? How did they do it? Against all odds. They didn't focus on where they started. You know what they did? They focused on achieving who they wanted to be. I want you to think about that. It's not about where you start. It's about getting started. It's not about where you start. It's about having clarity where you want to be. I want you to write this down. Think about this. So for my parents, against all odds, their magic to their method was their persistence. It was their resilience. It was their desperation. And let me tell you, desperation is not something I can train you to do. I can't coach you to be desperate for change. I can't coach you to bring that fire out of your belly. I can't. That's up to you. How desperate are you to be the change you want to see in your lifetime and for the generations to come? How hungry are you to see that impact? If not you, then who? If not now, then when? Echo that in your mind. So I stopped seeing things for what they were. I dared to see things for what they could be. That was pretty much the life mantra that I absorbed from my parents. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about my mother's struggle, because end of the day, what are we talking about? We're talking about empowering you. We're talking about equipping you. We're talking about enabling you, because I am speaking to a global audience of young women with enormous potential, massive. So let's look at my mom's struggle. Back in the day, there's a lot of stigma for working women, and let alone, my mom, like I said, she had a lot of stigma because she was pursuing a top legal career and she had 4 children, 4 mouths to feed. And she had a tremendous lack of a support system because her parents cut her off, right? Remember? So I was a child of a mother who worked very hard, constantly. I was a child of a mother who refused to give up. I was a child of a mother who made hard choices and big sacrifices to become successful because she believed that by working hard at her job, hear this, she believed that working hard at a job was also working hard for the family. She believed, she had the idea, if I work hard at my job, if I do this right, this also means I'm doing right for my family. I'm providing for my family. I'm being resilient for my family. I'm making it sustainable for my family. She didn't think, oh, I'm a woman. She didn't think, oh, my limitations. She didn't have time to think about the stigma. Mom was never lazy. She took responsibility for her circumstances because she knew that she didn't have any other option other than to work through what she went through. And most of the time, she went through a lot of things alone because dad was almost always away. He was posted, to other positions, regional positions in this company out of country. And back then they didn't have WhatsApp, all these cool tech that you use. They didn't have any of that. They didn't have Skype. They didn't have WhatsApp. They didn't have internet. They didn't have all those household functional tech. They didn't have that. So you can imagine, I got to see my mom's pain, but you know what? I also got to see her strength. I got to see my mom's fear, but you know what? I also got to see her courage. She was an agent for change in her own way. Yes. And she did what she could with what she had, how she knew was possible. I want you to write that down. Being an agent of change starts with doing what you can with what you have, how you believe is the best way possible. That's it. That's all it is. That's what it takes. Now let's look at my struggle. This is some introspection. Let's talk about Senela's struggle. Like I said, 3rd of 4 children. Didn't really have that, typical nurturing relationship. I didn't have, mom and dad hovering around me. I didn't have grandparents raising me saying, oh, do your homework. I brought the negative report card home and I used to get yelled at for it. That's it, right? It was right, wrong. I had to learn a lot of these things, just seeing what my parents emulated, right? That's really the teaching that I got. I didn't have that hands-on upbringing. I remember my parents, like I said, being very absent most of the time, unavailable. So I grew up also feeling very introverted. Believe it or not, the Senela you see today is my 10.0 version. If you knew the Senela, my 1.0 version, you'd freak out. You'd be like, Senela, were you that shy? What? Are you saying you're an international speaker? Are you a public speaker? If you only knew me back then, it would blow your mind to see my transformation, to see my drive, to see through my tears how I chose to do what I can with what I have in the best way I knew I could to be who I am today. So my struggle, I was very shy, constantly second guessing myself. How many of you have ever felt defeated in your life? Have you ever felt defeated? I'll raise my legs if I can. Yes, that's me. If I had 8 limbs to raise up, I'd raise all 8 limbs. I'd be like, yes, I felt defeated a lot of times in my life. I felt ugly. I didn't love myself. And growing up in South Asian culture as a teenager, man, let me tell you, it was very hard. It was very hard. Culturally, somehow, I observed that there was preference and there was more entitlements for my brothers, for boys, for men. I observed this. Back then, my experience felt very sheltered. I felt like this precious little bird locked up in a little cage. I felt subdued. I felt like I couldn't really express myself. And a lot of this was, in a big way, yes, household conditioning, but also, moreover, social conditioning. It was my experience. It was my exposure. I remember growing up where I was told not to play in the mud and get my knees dirty. because I'm a girl, but my brothers could. I remember growing up, I had very strict curfews, whereas my brothers had none. I remember growing up, I needed to be chaperoned for everything. I had to ask permission to do things, and my brothers never had to. Why is that, Mom? Why is that, Dad? I started questioning. My hunger to be that agent for change began. Socially, this narrative that girls need permission stems from childhood. It gets reinforced quite a lot, doesn't it? So growing up, I always faced this social pressure of having to be pretty and skinny, whereas my brothers were praised for being smart, for being creative. So it felt like there were these different standards, girls versus boys, purely based on gender. So you can see, it's very easy to, the assumption would be, Senela, wow, now I see where this conviction came from for you to be that agent of change, for the type of thing you stand for and the power and velocity you use to stand behind it. It makes sense now, isn't it? The puzzle comes together. So I want to, share with you a little bit more about the thoughts that went through my mind through my journey of evolution. So like I said, growing up, I had a lack of self-confidence, self-belief. And what does self-belief mean? What does this mean? It means looking at the mirror and speaking to yourself and going, oh, that dress, I look so ugly. My knees are too dark. My forehead is too big. My arms are, chicken wings. I like Kentucky Fried Chicken. I don't feel good right now. I'm not confident. I don't believe that I deserve this. I don't believe. Did they actually call me to volunteer for that organization? Are you kidding? They picked me out of 40 applicants. That's probably sometimes what you think. That lack of self-belief. How do you talk to yourself? How do you talk to your best friends, your girls? Do you tell them, oh, I don't think you can do it. Do you talk to your girlfriends like that? Do you talk to your boyfriends like that? I doubt it. You're going to say, you got this. I believe in you. Do we use that same enthusiasm and energy when we speak to ourselves? So I struggled with, the self-confidence thing and self-belief. And fast forward to today, let me tell you, opportunities, power, having that self-agency, grabbing that self-independence comes from the mindset. There's a lot of power here, a lot of power. So that ignition is with this confidence piece. Another one, I was scared to ask questions. Can you relate to this? You go to education, we need educational reform. You go to school, they want you to, get brainwashed into something. Think a particular way, don't ask questions. So I was scared to ask questions. Do as you're told. What else? Do as it's always been done. Generationally, your grandmother did it this way. Hey, your grandmother did it this way. Mom did it this way. Do it. This is how it's done. Also, do what's socially acceptable. How many of you today are still stifled with this idea, this limiting, self-defeating narrative? Will they accept me? If I dress this way, what will they think? I want to be an agent of change, but what will my parents say? What will my friends think? Are they going to be supportive? Don't wait for them. What do you think? I'm asking you. The biggest fan club you're ever going to need is yourself. And then you select your precious 5, your inner circle of 5. What else? So I want you to be cognizant about tradition and culture, because this is going to be a big piece. If you want to be an agent of change, ladies, I want you to be mindful about tradition and culture. There's good tradition, there's bad tradition. Not all tradition is bad. Not all tradition is good. There's good, there's bad. Culture, not all tradition, not all culture is good, and not all culture is bad. So tradition and culture, I want you to be cognizant about these two things. Another one, I didn't have a strong opinion for things or a presence. When you walk into an event, when you speak, when you're introduced to somebody, you see somebody coming in and you have to shake hands with somebody and do a self-introduction, but then the person you're introduced to has amazing energy and you're kind of like, whoops, I'm scared now. What are they going to think? It's all about, let's impress this person. You forget who you are. Stop impressing anybody. You can't be an agent of change if it's about impressing him, her. It's not about impressing. It's about doing the job right. It's about making the impact. And I promise you, you could have the meekest voice. You could have the smallest frame. I'm very small made. You might probably think I talk as if I'm this giant. I talk as if I'm 7 feet tall. Ladies, I'm 5 feet 2 inches. Come on. I'm tiny. I'm petite. I come into a conference. People are like, what is this little thing? I get on the podium. Boy, do I grab that mic. I swallow it because I have a vision. I have a voice and I use it. All right. So it's about being cognizant again about your self-image, your body language. Write this down. How do you see yourself? Do you feel confident when you get dressed, when you get out of the house every morning, when you wake up from bed? What about your body language? Are you meek? Are you powerful? How do you come across? Do you wear a mask in life? Vulnerability. Do you know that even adults, as adults, not just you girls, even adults, we have vulnerability issues? I'm no exception, because success is a moving target. You will never be 100%, but your mindset is what will push you, keep pushing you, keep pushing you, keep pushing you. And this idea that understanding my power, the day you truly understand your power, that is when you will choose to own it. You will start making the choices right by you. You don't wait for others to say, oh, you know what, you're beautiful. No, I am beautiful. You don't wait for others to say, I think you have this talent. I think you have this God-given ability. I see this potential in you. Hey, what about having this potential and having this quality of talking to yourself and saying, you know what, I have identified that I'm good at this. I did this project last month and I killed it. I did so well. I have this ability. I won't take it for granted. How can I use my strengths for new opportunities? How can I use my identified areas to improve to convert into powerful strengths and assets? That is up to me. What else? Another one, missed opportunities due to a lack of self-trust. Self-trust, I want you to write this down. Self-trust is huge. Self-confidence is a combination of self-trust, self-love, self-acceptance. Self-trust, self-love, self-acceptance. If you don't accept yourself, don't tell me you love yourself. And hurting people hurt others. You can't be an agent of change if you're still hurting. Do you love yourself? I'll give you a little bit of the arsenal towards the end of my presentation. So pretty much what I'm trying to tell you is, ladies, my evolution journey, I love how Lady Gaga said, she had to literally manufacture herself. I saw Lady Gaga say this in one of the interviews. She said, I had to literally manufacture myself to be who I want to be. Look at her today. All the naysayers who laughed at her, look at her today. She's an agent of change. Wouldn't you agree? Oh, you don't know Lady Gaga? I know Lady Gaga. You know Lady Gaga, right? So she's amazing. She's an icon. She's a legend. And I also had this idea. Have you ever thought, well, Senela, I'm too broken. I've been through too much. You don't know my story. I don't think I can be an agent of change. I had this idea too. I used to think, don't fix what's too broken. I can't do it. I'm too tired. No, that's the entitlement mentality. I'm going to give you hard talk. If you want to be an agent of change, stop looking for sympathy. Stop looking for sympathy. Start showing empathy. Start inspiring empathy. You're not a victim. Use your struggle as your strength. And also, I didn't like being conspicuous. I didn't like speaking like this. I didn't like coming up in front. So this was my evolution journey. So I want you to think about those limiting narratives. That's what I really showed you right now. Those were literally those limiting narratives that kept me back. Think about this. So really, what I want to tell you is that courage is on the other side of fear. Without fear, there is no courage. It's like going to the gym, getting a workout done. Unless you flex those muscles, you're not going to build it up. With no exercise, you're not going to know how strong you can be. Just like that, is this idea about courage. Face your fear. What's your fear? Go through it. Practice going through your fear. Practice. You get knocked down, get back up again. That's what it takes. That's what it means. And I believed in this. I believed in this mantra, and I applied it, and I changed my life. And not only my life, I was also instrumental to change thousands and thousands of the lives of others around the world. So what changed me? I dared to believe in myself. I knew I needed to change in order to change my life. I knew I needed to change my thinking in order to change my choices. Thinking the same way is not going to give me different results. Self-limiting beliefs. Do any of you right now today have self-limiting beliefs? How do you talk to yourself? If I had a way to get inside you and listen to what you tell yourself from morning till night, gosh, I'm curious. Think about that. Hating yourself, feeling like you're the ugliest teenager around, or feeling like you're the ugliest person at campus. The minute you start reinforcing these aspects about yourself, you're never going to attract that healthy relationship. Or if you're constantly buying into what society says is acceptable, what society says is tradition and the way for girls and women, that's not going to make you feel less empty, less rejected in your own skin. And believe me, I used to be that girl who could never look in the mirror and say, I love you. I accept you. I believe in you. And I want to tell you today, if you want to be an agent of change, I want to say, start by looking in the mirror. Give yourself a big hug and say, I love you. I believe in you. I accept you. So I want you to think about everything I shared today. And I want to give you this analogy. Is your glass half empty or is it half full? Remember that mantra in life. If you want to be an agent of change, what is a mantra? Do what you can with what you have, the best way you know is possible. I've been reinforcing that throughout today. So the first step for that confidence to bring you out in all your glory, in all your independent agency, in all your presence, to manifest you to the world, to be the change you want to see, starts with learning to love yourself, starts with learning to accept yourself, starts with learning to trust yourself. Fast forward to today, I'm a global CEO. I run 2 companies. I'm on the board of 4 companies. My corporate job before this, before I got into full-time corporate entrepreneurship, I was the country head for a British firm in Hertfordshire. Prior to that, I was a communications lead in a Fortune 100 company. Why am I saying this? It's not about where you start. You heard my story, but it's more about getting started. It's not about where you start. It's about having clarity in where you want to be and taking that action and bettering yourself every day. It's the small changes you make every day that's going to change the direction of your life. So as I come almost to a close today, I want to leave with you some key takeaways as well. You're probably curious, you're probably engaging, thinking, wow, Senela, gosh, you made me really reflective now with your talk, right? You've got me really thinking, Senela. You know, so I went on to be from that little shy girl who felt absolutely insignificant to designing this, you know, global brand that has pledged to be the change she wants to see. So today I travel the world, I speak around the world, I do a lot of transformational work around the world, in Africa, you know, in US, in Asia. Is it in line with my values? Is it in line with my purpose? And then I went on to get a lot of coveted awards for my work globally. Why? Because of my conviction. Why? When I get knocked down, I get back up again. Why? Because I believe to do what I can with what I have, the best way that I know is possible. And I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to wait for someone else. I believe that I can. So talking about being an agent of change, ladies, and I see some gentlemen in the room today as well. Of course, you know, the SDGs, there are so many of them. So I want you to pick, what are you passionate about? Huh? Now, you know, I'm all about SDG 5. And SDG 5 has the ripple effect on so many other SDGs, right? You'd agree? But what are you passionate about? What is that big thing, that heartburn, that desperation you have? What is that? What are you going to commit to stand for and stand behind? What are you going to put your image, your reputation, and your name behind? Your dedication, your sacrifice, and your effort behind? What is that going to be? I want you to choose. Oh, Senela, I'm not sure. No, you can't start like that. If you're not sure, start getting clear. Time doesn't wait for anybody, and the world needs you. The world needs people like you. You're powerful. You're powerful beyond what you think you can do. So these are the SDGs. So I want you to think about that. And I want to also share with you some quick remedies, not remedies, but more, you know, like I said, I'm not going to give you answers, but I'm going to give you some inspired action, some food for thought. That's really my intention today. That self-discovery and that empowerment to say, yes, I can. And I want to commit to being that agent of change. So what's the first step? What's your solution step? How can you be an agent for change? Number one, do what I did. Look at your experience. Identify, number one, identify a gap in the system. What is that big social problem out there? What's happening? Look around. You can't be an agent of change if you don't care what's happening. Remember, being sensitive to happiness, but being also sensitive to pain. That's what it's about. So identify that big social problem that you want to solve. Number two, observe. What are the organizations that are already aligned with that social problem and that's already at the forefront of solving it? Get behind them. You don't need to reinvent the wheel if they're already out there. If there's no one out there who is addressing that specific pain point that you've identified that you want to get behind and you want to stand for, then you, of course, by all means, go in there and you dominate that area. You say, I want to be the agent of change for this, but be specific. Clarity in thinking will get you clarity in results. Clear thinking is going to get you clear results. That's what the world needs. World doesn't need more confusion, so get clear. Number three, come up with what you can do to make that better. Volunteerism, volunteering. Work with organizations that give you opportunities, that create opportunities for others. And number four, ask yourself, how can I add value? How can I really, truly be an ambassador and an advocate for change? And looking at, as I close, looking at some quick qualities of an agent of positive change. Number one, this is a no-brainer. If you want to be an agent of positive change, you need to be positive. Yes, somebody give me a drum roll, right? You have to be positive. It's not about, oh, I have to do this, I have to. No. It's about, I get to do this. Can you see the paradigm shift? It's not, I have to. It's about, I get to. I wake up in the morning, I get to do this for myself. I get to do this for someone else. Number two, it's about that resilience, being resilient. It's not about what happens to me, but it's about how I choose to respond. Because I tell you, things happen to everybody every day. You're no exception. I'm sorry to tell you this. You're no exception, but it's about how you respond to it. Number three, the world is becoming more and more gender neutral. So the playing field is a little bit more equal than when I had to, than when my mother had to face it, than, you know, the people before her had to face it. The world is seeing that shift. So I want you to snap out of that victim mindset and look at that opportunity-seeking mindset, because globally, the world is shifting. Number four, be an innovator. If you're not innovating, you're obsolete. And come on, I'm speaking to the young generation. I'm speaking to the future leaders today, right? Some of you are going to lead on into UN careers. Some of you are going to head businesses. So looking at things with fresh eyes, change your paradigm, right? And see, find solutions to achieve what you can with what you have, with what you know. And when you don't know it, ask for help. Ask for help. That's very powerful. So some of the things I did when I was a teenager, I did a lot of reading. I took to a lot of personal development books. I remember the book Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That was a game changer for me. I looked a lot outward for role models, and I looked inward for courage. I looked outward for role models, inward for courage. Looked upward for hope to God. I'm very spiritual. I looked upward for hope, but never downwards. Because if you look down, the minute you put your chin down, psychologically, physiologically, it's like you're giving up. You're focusing on the wrong thing. So look outward for role models, inward for courage, look upwards for hope, right? And finally, my final frame for you today is I want to leave you with a challenge, and then we break for Q&A. And my challenge is this. It's a powerful question. And I also want to share with you this quote, right? I quickly pulled this out. This is a quote that went out, and I mean every word. Fear is a state of mind. It's not a state of being. Fear is not who you are. It's not your personality. If you face your fears with courage, I want you to say courage, yes. It can take you to places you didn't think was possible. Believe it. You got to believe it. So my challenge for you is this. I'm asking you, let me see all your faces here. What is one thing, just one thing, what am I asking you? Senela is asking you one thing that you can do to start being a positive agent of change. One thing. What is that one thing going to be? Think about it. And with that, I land the plane. I'm going to yield my mic and pass it back over to Netra. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senela. Honestly, that has been an absolutely amazing session. I know for one, I was truly inspired, and I can vouch for everybody here in the audience that we are all inspired by your journey and how we could become better people and agents of change. So now we'll open it to Q&A. And the first question is, how do you combat self-doubt? Because it could be very hard to keep going, but how do you combat that? Oh, I'm afraid you're muted.
Journaling has helped me so much. 2 things. Number 1, journaling. Number 2, positive affirmations. I tell you, I have been journaling ever since the age of, 10, 13, in my darkest hour, when I felt like I didn't have anyone else. And self-doubt. I learned to go through it to heal it. Remember, success is the moving target. So self-doubt, I would journal. Why am I doubtful? About what? I do introspection while I'm journaling. And by the end of my journaling, I've got answers. I'm asking myself, what is it about my mind and my experience that's reinforcing that I must doubt myself? Then I remember this, Netra. I literally drew up a column and I tabulate my strengths and weaknesses. And in my journal, I literally went on and said, Senela, who do I want to be? Colon, blah, 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 answer. And then on my left-hand column, my strengths. What are my strengths? Not too many. Hang on. Let me think. Okay, let's go to the weaknesses. Plenty. Let's go back to strength. Oh, hang on. If I'm less self-critical, because I'm known to be very critical, women are known to be very critical, right? If I can, for a second, stop being my worst critique and be my best friend, if I can be true to myself and say, what are my strengths? I start writing them down. And then I realize, wow, the idea that I have doubt about things, I'm actually creating some of these doubts for no reason, for no logical explanation. A lot of the times, self-doubt, I challenge you with this idea, self-doubt is an emotional fabrication. It's not a rational one. There are athletes, it makes a difference for an athlete who's running in the Olympics and tells themselves just before the, they have the gunshot and they're about to pounce and run in their 100-meter race. Their mindset, if they tell themselves, I don't think I'm going to win this race. You think they're going to win? You think they're going to bag the Olympic gold medal? You tell me. No. So self-doubt is not rational. So to get rational, question, where is this doubt coming from? How much of it is factual? How much of it is emotional? And also the positive affirmations. I still have affirmations. I have the big one. I'm going to end this answer with this. I have a big one, Netra. In A4 letters, I have written, I will make you proud. Why am I telling this to myself? I blast it out in big font and I pasted it in my wardrobe. Yes, at my age, as a CEO, I still do this. I open my wardrobe every morning, I get dressed. I will make you proud. I'm like, wow, okay, all right. I believe you, Senela. I talk to myself. So those things have helped me very much. And I hope they will help you as well.
I definitely agree. Going back to what you said about being positive, that's the first step to change and just keeping that attitude. So the next question that we have here is a bit of a long one, and it's kind of painting you a picture, but the question is that this person is studying and working in a social organization for student welfare. Their parents are very supportive of them, but she is an introvert and they would like to transform themselves to be the best doctor in the field, but also grow up with a social life. And there's places where they feel shattered and they feel like they can't do it, but their family is very supportive and encourage them to think out of the box and come out of their comfort zone. So how could they implement this into their life?
You're talking about me. Remember I said I can relate to this. This is not who I was, my 1.0 version. You're talking about me. That was probably my 5.0, okay? Because my 1.0 was that bad. So I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to help you. Where do you see your big picture self 5 years from now? What is your vision? To the person who wrote that question down, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? What is your end result? What is your goal? How do you see yourself? Do some visualization for me. What are you wearing? Who are you associating with? What kind of job do you have? You know, how do you talk to people 5 years from now? What is that goal you have? Now I want you to do some introspection. Come back to reality with me. Where are you right now? So I've helped you visualize where you want to be. And now I want you to understand where you are right now. And now I want you to figure out for yourself. Now that I have a clear idea of who I want to be, my ultimate goal, not who someone else wants me to be, because people pleasing is not going to help me in the long run. Where do I see myself versus where am I now? Now I want to think, what do I need to change inside of me today to make that jump by 2 steps forward? What do I want to do today to make that jump 5 steps forward by next year? What do I want to do and change in myself? Remember, being an agent of change is about starting with yourself, changing yourself. What about you? Do you want to start changing so that you can accomplish to be that 5-year version of yourself? But you're never going to reach that until you paint that clear picture where you see yourself 5 years from now. So I'm going to ask you the counter question, whoever wrote that question to me. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? First, get clarity on that, not what others expect of you, because that's not long-lived. A lot of people drop out of medicine. A lot of people drop out of things because they are not convicted. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? And another thing I did was, once I've identified, have clarity in where I see myself 5 years from now versus where I am right now, then what I would do is ask myself, what do I fear the most that's keeping me from trying? And you know what I did? Those are the very things that I push myself to face. I started to face my fears. I'll give an example. Public speaking, terrified. My first public speaking gig, I almost fainted. I didn't know my name. I didn't know my parents' name. My knees were winky wonky and I almost collapsed. Everything went blank. And I went out there. I said, that was so embarrassing. My first public speaking gig, I was about 21 years old. I never want to put Senela through that again because I was just so desperate to not be that disaster again. And every opportunity I got for public speaking, I raised my hand. So that's what change is about. Raise your hand, face your fear, practice gets you closer to where you want to be.
That is a great message, and I hopefully this person will take that and implement it in its life. And I definitely agree with that. It starts with you, and having that encouraging environment is definitely helpful, but it does start with you. And throughout the session, I'm seeing that a lot of people are definitely seeing themselves in you, because we have another question very loosely similar to how you started off. And this is, a student from Pakistan feels like she loses energy when she's surrounding herself with other people. She tries her best to have confidence, with everything, whether it be studying, friendships, family. People are shocked and with their expectations don't meet what they wanted. They understand topics very well, but they can't explain it to others. She doesn't feel comfortable talking to people easily, and that's why people don't take her seriously. So how can we fix that, and how can we guide her?
So there are two things to that. I love that question. Yes, you are talking about, again, I can relate to that. Hello. So one of the things I'll tell you is there are two things to growth. There's your mindset, and then there's your magic. Your magic is your skill set. What is it? Your skill set. So rationally looking at it, you got to do a self-assessment, or you have a professional do an assessment and see, where are you in your public speaking skills? Where are you in your presentation skills? Where are you in how you communicate as a communicator? Where are you in how you come across? Where are you in your problem-solving capability? If I ask you to do a self-introduction, are you able to do that? Are you shy? So these are certain skills that you need to improve. So technically, I would say you need to improve your competency when it comes to the gaps you see to do with your soft skills. That's your first step. But first, do a self-assessment. If I want to be that epitome of confidence as a woman, as a young woman, where am I right now? Do that assessment. If you don't know where you start, you will never know how far you want to go. Remember that. You can't shoot in the dark. It doesn't work here. Nobody's going to hit any targets. Okay? So you got to know, where do you start right now? Get that clarity and then work on your soft skills. Speak to a professional. Subscribe to courses. Watch a lot of TEDx videos. YouTube is your university. It's amazing, right? And then get a professional course going. There are a lot of free courses out there as well, right? Also, find a mentor who's already gone there, who's gone the distance. Get time from a mentor and say, how did you do it? Can you guide me? I too am an introvert. What is the other side? Once I go, how can I get better? So that's your skill set. Now, the mindset piece is another one. The mindset piece is also important. I'll tell you why. You've taken the course and you're still trying it out and you're still not doing A+ in your public speaking. I'm taking public speaking as an example. You're still shy, you're still timid. Now, if your mindset is not positive, if your mindset is not supporting you, you're going to say, oh, let's stop. I tried. It's not going to work. I give up. So that's why I'm saying, friends, you have to have the skill set and you also have to have the mindset, because it's a mindset that's going to tell you trying once is not enough. Trying twice is not enough. If you look at Abraham Lincoln, he applied for presidency more than 17 times he failed. And then I believe it was the 18th time, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, right? That's when he became the president of the United States of America. So that's a mindset. So you have to have the skill set, competencies, and the mindset to go parallelly, hand in hand.
That was some great advice. And honestly, I think that I will implement that into my life as well. On the topic of public speaking, we've generally briefly touched on this, but how do you overcome the fear of public speaking?
So fear, again, is the mind. I think the first thing you need to do is you need to tell yourself, who was it? I think, again, it was Abraham Lincoln who said, you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree. I'm going to take 4 hours to sharpen my saw and just 2 hours to chop it down, right? So what am I trying to tell you? Again, it's the mind. If you tell yourself, I am my fear, me going out there on stage is going to be disaster. If you go in with that, you're going to come out exactly that way because you've manifested it. You've spoken into failure even before trying. So that's number one. So it's going in there saying, hey, I'm going to try it. There are also people. So one of the things I personally did was preparation. If I know that I have to speak to somebody, I'll give you a very simple example. Say you're in uni, you're in college, or you're in high school, and you are the custodian to present this presentation on a project to your team. You're the team leader. If I was you, to overcome my fear of public speaking, number one, I would prepare and learn my material. What is my project about? What is my subject matter? I'm going to become a subject matter expert. What am I trying to present? I'll make sure that I've crossed all the T's, done my research. Number two, who am I presenting to? I don't want to have any surprises last minute. Who are the people in the room? What is their mindset level at? How many of them might have a personal bias against me? How many of them are quite neutral? I'm going to have as much awareness as I can before walking into a room. Who is my audience? And always remember, they are human beings just like me. And the funny thing about public speaking is they did a survey. They said next to the fear of death, it's a fear of speaking in public. So what is that telling me? You are not alone. All those fancy people you see in the hall who look like they're A+ in public speaking, inside, they're probably like, shaking in their boots. They're probably looking at you and going, wow, look at that young lady. When I was her age, I couldn't do that. So give yourself some grace. Go in there with an open mind. Don't ever tell yourself, oh, I'm going to be a failure. I'll just do this anyway. No, that's not going to do. And practice, practice, practice. Because practice makes it perfect. I'm telling you, if you go there with practice, you're going to walk out there with confidence.
I can say from personal experience that the advice that you're giving works. It definitely works. Knowing the material and just seeing your other people in the room as human as well. So it all works. The next question we have is, how do we fight low self-esteem?
That's a deep one. Can I confide something in you? Like I said, success is a moving target. So is self-esteem. There are days that in my line of work, I speak on panels where I'm the youngest person in the room. There are these people who are much older than me, who are more qualified to talk about a subject because they have about 30 years more experience, doing that particular thing. But then I go in there and I tell myself, wow, I find myself doubting myself sometimes. But then I tell myself, what am I doing? I catch myself in that moment. Why am I talking to myself like this? What about my achievements so far don't I get? Why is research telling me that 95% of female executives that come out suffer with imposter syndrome? Why? Where is this coming from? Isn't it tiring? So then I tell myself, I just got to love myself. I got to do more journaling. I've got to know myself. I've got to accept myself. Remember the formula for confidence? Self-esteem stems from that. It's self-love, self-acceptance, your flaws and all, and self-trust. The minute you can develop self-trust, and self-trust is to practice. Self-trust is putting yourself and being okay going through uncertainties. Self-trust comes from exposing yourself to risk. Self-trust comes from making those right choices, even if you're in the minority, because you believe in yourself, you trust yourself. And always remember this analogy. Go to the gym and you want to, flex your muscles. That's your confidence muscle. It's uncomfortable, right? You want to lift 20 kilo weights to get stronger. Such is self-esteem. Put yourself out there, face your fear, practice as much as you can before you make yourself presentable out there. Practice, practice. What about me don't I like? How much of it is rational? How much of it is emotional? And I'll tell you another thing that has really supported me with self-esteem. How many of you have a circle of friends around you that you have chosen that are there to support you? It could be your mom. It could be your dad. We have a lot of feminist dads out there. Don't forget. It could be your brother, your best friend. Who are those circle of 5 around you who are there to pull you up, snap out of it, to tell you that when you feel down? What is your influence? What are the books you read? What are the teledramas you watch? Goodness, let me tell you, young generation, if you're watching movies that are depressing and always showing a woman as a damsel in distress, that's going to really inflict your self-esteem. You got to think more empowered. You got to be very mindful about what you feed your mind, because what you feed your mind is going to feed your behavior. Remember that. So always remember, what's the literature you choose to read? What is the association you choose to associate with? Associate with people who already have self-esteem. Associate with people who can inspire you, who bring out who can bring out the best in you, and who are not scared to tell you your worst. Don't associate with people who say, oh, you look so pretty today. That's not going to get you to be a change agent. Look for people who are going to say, you know what, I think we can do better with this. So who is your association and what do you expose yourself to?
That's such great advice. And honestly, I think the first step to overcoming low self-confidence and the low self-esteem is realizing that that is the problem that's holding you back. So this next question here is an absolutely fantastic one. One thing that affects change and agents of change is finances. You can identify a problem, let's say period poverty, but the finances to buy materials might be limited. So how can you create impact with limited financial resources?
That's such a powerful question. Considering the context of that question, because I'm assuming it's coming from somebody who is a graduate, somebody who is a pre-grad, somebody who's in high school. Now, considering the context, you do have the opportunity of banding together with a volunteer organization. You can volunteer to an organization, because organizations that are open to take volunteers in come with resources. Organizations like that, nonprofit sector or social services sector or advocacy sector, have access and resources to facilitate that. So if you're looking for how can I, access certain things, how can I get access to material, access to networks, you've got to see what you can leverage. So my answer to you is this: who do you know that can help you with that in your immediate first degree circle of influence? Who do you know? Do you know somebody who can get you there? Maybe you haven't been introduced yet, but who in your first degree connections can you leverage? Who in your second degree connection can you leverage? What are the volunteering organizations out there who will possibly be open to accept somebody like me? Can I apply? Why not even try? Why not even try to apply for that? So based on the context that you're still a graduate, that you're still in high school, that is sort of the gist of the answer I would give you. If I was speaking to a micro SME female entrepreneur, my answer is going to be quite different, obviously. But because of the context that it's coming from somebody who's in high school, pre-grad or graduate, you do have these opportunities to find a mentor. Don't be shy, but before you approach a mentor and ask them for support, make sure that you know what are your questions for them. Do your self-assessment. Do your homework. I have people coming to me and saying, Senela, can you be my mentor? Senela, can you get me access to resources? I'm like, what do you want mentoring on? Hang on, can I come back to you? I'm not sure. But what do you want access to resources on? Well, I'm not really sure, Senela. Can I think about that? If you're looking for a mentor, if you're looking for access, first get clarity and awareness. What type of mentoring do you need? What type of access to resources do you need? And resources to get the job done is not only involving finance. I'll tell you that. There are plenty of knowledge tools out there, technology platforms, free technology platforms. Use social media to be a champion for a cause. Social media is free. It's organic. Be very strategic how you position yourself. You're a personal brand. You're a young future leader. That is your personal brand. How do you communicate? How do you put contents on your social media? People are watching. People are observing you. If you want to be an agent of change, people are watching you, how you're posting on social media. That too is a form of resources for you as an agent of change. It's not only money, but great question.
I think what that comes to mind when we're talking about this context is that your network is your net worth. And I think you have just reinforced that point beautifully. So this will be the last question that we have before we wrap up. And the question is, how do we overcome the fear of failing?
Wow, how do we overcome the fear of failing? If I can be very honest, and this is likely to be something a lot of successful people from millionaires to billionaires, I'm sure they'll echo this, it's to actually fail. I'm not kidding. When you fail, when you start back again, you don't start from the beginning. You start from the point you failed. So when you fail, it means you already went into that with resources, with lessons learned, with knowledge, with some resources. And if you still want to pursue that which you failed, remember, you don't have to go all the way back and start. You get to start with that experience and the lessons learned from that failing point, and you start from the point you failed. I actually did a power video on this on social media. So I'm really telling you, it's really telling yourself, I am tired of being risk averse. The idea that you're scared of failing comes from your determination to wear a mask and say, I'm perfect, to wear a mask and say, it's all about impression. Nobody cares about impression. Your impression is not sustainable. Your ultimate result is. So instead of fearing failure, nothing in life is fail-proof. Nothing in life is fear-proof. But everything is possible if you have faith in yourself, if you have clarity, and if you have conviction, and you try. And if you fail, at least those who didn't even try, I promise you, will look up to you and be like, hey, she actually tried. And when you start again, you pick up from where you left, not back from zero. I have failed many times in my life. I wonder if I can cite this, but you know Alibaba, right? The founder of Alibaba. Do you know, if I'm not mistaken, he was diagnosed as having ADHD, or no, it was dyslexia. If I'm not mistaken, I need to be mindful about this. But Alibaba, the founder of Alibaba, right? He's running such a massive company, but he was, you know, he applied for a particular job and he was rejected over 17 times. A lot of the entrepreneurs today, from the founder of Canva, from the founder of, you look at the biggest brands, they have gone to investors, they've done so many investor rounds, you know, the startups, they pitch their startup businesses and they've been rejected. And there were times that every big, more successful person today, you look at their start and they have felt like a failure. But they use that failure, they use that struggle to make it their strength. They didn't stop. So every time they got rejected from a seed round, every time they got rejected from an investor, what did they do? They made their pitch a little better. They did some product augmentation and they went back in there. They repitched to a new investor. That is the mindset of millionaires, of successful people. So that is the mindset of an agent of change, because you are convicted that your voice matters. You are convicted that it takes someone like you to be the change you want to see. So that is what I would tell you about having this fear of failure.
So we will start to wrap it up now, but I just wanted to personally thank you, Senela, for an absolutely fabulous presentation. Speaking to us as an agent of change, you have proved that we all can be agents of change with the right mindset. We are only holding ourselves back and we can go to our full potential. Thank you to our audience for listening and engaging and have taken this value of knowledge and implemented into your life. If you need any more details, please visit our website, www.spunko.com, and our lovely partner who has made this possible, KeyNote, at www.keynotewomen.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day ahead.
Thank you, everyone. So happy to be with you. Bye. See you.